Greetings, my fellow philosophical thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. This is episode 1962, The Lesson of Gaddafi. Before I proceed, you can follow me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Looky Luck number 3, Looky Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or the Looky Luck Roman 3 podcast. Furthermore, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, and all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you're donating to paypal.me or cash.app/Loki Luck number 3. Well, we all know right now, time is flying, huh? Amazing. May's just around the corner. And on this day, the Church of Satan was born in 1966, 60 years ago. I'm not saying I'm praising it by any means, just a little interesting history and my personal view on that. It was nothing new what was happening, but Anton LaVey just did it at the right time, you can say. And I'll be very frank, now it's like, you can say it's been pretty watered down with all due respect. I know many members have withdrew their cards because they see a lot of the stagnation or the status quo, allegedly speaking. But I'm not here to mudsling them, but it's just based on some of the people I knew that was involved in that organization. I know David Allan Coe passed away yesterday. 86 years old. Pretty cool. Left some great songs behind. May it still be forever free. Met him one time on a bike run in Daytona Beach, Bike Week 1990. With a traveling merchant. Pretty cool. Just walked in and introduced himself. I didn't really take any photos, but I know a lot of people did. I was just here to do to make money. You know, meet them probably afterwards. But it's all well and good. He was a very influential, you can say. That's like gritty, you know, not this Menudo country you hear now. Ole, 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 hee-haw. And to be very honest, some people haven't really heard the stuff I've done in the past. Even I started doing this around 12 years ago, a little over 12 years ago. And I just pick and choose. You know, some people said the last episode a little bit like mainstream talking points. But I can't get mad because just one of those things I just like pick and select and just do give my intake. This time I lay down information, merits, facts, and put those on my page so you folks can read it yourselves. But it's all well and good, man. I'm not angry at all. You know, it's just like pretty, like I appreciate people's comments, you know, and I give a person some props. He wants to hear things different, not the trendy, information, which unlike, you know, give and take, it depends what mood I'm in, but I'm not, you know, here to exploit it by any means. Well, I'm going to be, talking about this, article I read from antiwar.com. Pretty interesting here. The Lesson of Gaddafi, written by Jeffrey Wernick, came out today. Says here, I want to tell you a story that most Americans have never been told. Not because the information is hidden, because no one has connected the dots in a way that makes the consequences visible. It's a story about trust, about prosperity, about what happens when a country trusts the United States, and about what every other government in the world learned from watching that happen next. The name was Muammar Gaddafi. He ruled Libya for 42 years. He was an authoritarian. He was responsible for serious abuses of his own people. He sponsored terrorism. None of that is in dispute. But before we talk about how he died, I want to tell you what Libya looked like while he was alive. because a part of the story is almost never told. Under Gaddafi, the Libya had the highest per capita income in Africa. Education was free, healthcare was free, having a home was considered a human right, fuel was nearly free. Libya ranked second on the Human Development Index for the entire African continent, behind only Mauritius. The country had built the giant Great Man-Made River, the largest irrigation system in the world, bringing water from the deep desert, aquifers, to the cities and the coast. Gaddafi called it the eighth wonder of the world. Whatever you admired him or despised him, it was an extraordinary engineering achievement that served millions of people. Libya has its own oil, its own water, its own food supply, its own state bank, its own currency. It was, by the measures that matter to ordinary people, one of the most prosperous nations on the African continent. I'm not telling you this to defend him. I am telling you this so you understand what was destroyed. Now, let me tell you what Gaddafi was building beyond Libya's borders. He had a vision for African economic independence. He was financing an African monetary fund, an African investment bank, and most significantly, an African central bank that would issue a gold-backed currency, a pan-African currency that would allow African nations to trade with each other and with the world without dependence on the US dollar, the IMF, or the French African franc. For 50 years, African nations have been held in economic dependence through their currencies and their debt. Gaddafi was trying to change that. He had an oil wealth to back it. He had the political relationships across the continent to build it. Yet that ambition made him dangerous to people who had nothing to do with human rights. Now let me tell you what happened in 2003. Gaddafi made a decision. He watched what the United States did to Saddam Hussein. He watched the invasion of Iraq. He watched the stated justification, weapons of mass destruction, and he decided he did not want to be next. So he did what American officials had been asking him to do for years. He surrendered his weapons of mass destruction program completely. He opened his nuclear facilities to the international inspectors. He cooperated with the war on terror. He paid reparations to the families of the Lockerbie bombing. He normalized relations with the West. He disarmed, he complied, he trusted. The Bush administration celebrated. Condoleezza Rice flew to Tripoli. Gaddafi was welcomed back into the community of nations. The sanctions came off. Western oil companies returned. It was held up as a model, a proof of concept. This is what happens when rogue states cooperate. 8 years later, NATO bombed Libya. The intervention was authorized by the UN Security Council to protect civilians, a no-fly zone, a humanitarian mission. That was a story told to the public. Here is what the evidence shows. The British Parliament investigated the intervention in 2016. Its conclusion was direct. The UK government had failed to identify that the threat to civilians was overstated. Early press reports had exaggerated the death toll by a factor of 10. Human Rights Watch later documented 233 deaths across all of Libya in the early days of the uprising. Western media had reported thousands. Humanitarian justification was built on numbers that were not true. And the no-fly zone authorized to protect civilians became a regime change operation within weeks. NATO struck Gaddafi's forces not just defensively, but offensively. It provided weapons, training, and covert troops to rebel to rebel forces. It continued bombing even when Gaddafi's government offered a ceasefire that could have ended the violence. The ceasefire was rejected. The mission was not to protect civilians. The mission was to remove Gaddafi. But there is more. In 2016, Hillary Clinton's emails were made public. What they revealed was not primarily about the humanitarian situation in Libya. What they revealed was a second reason for the intervention that had never been stated publicly. France, according to those documents, had specific motivations. Preferential access to Libyan oil, the reassertion of French influence in North Africa, and critically, the preservation of Gaddafi's gold-backed African currency. The emails documented that Gaddafi had accumulated significant gold and silver reserves, estimated at the time 143 tons of gold, specifically back a Pan-African currency that would challenge the dollar and the French African franc. The currency would have allowed African nations to escape the financial structures that had kept them dependent on Western institutions for decades. That project died with Gaddafi. His government collapsed. He was found hiding in a drainage pipe. A mob pulled him out, killed him in the street. His body was put on a public display. No autopsy was permitted. No independent investigation was conducted. He was buried in a secret grave in the desert. Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of State, was shown a video of his death on her phone. Her response, caught on camera, was, "We came, we saw, he died." The statement was heard around the world, not as candor, as a message. The message was this: compliance does not protect you. Cooperation does not protect you. Surrendering your weapons does not protect you. If we decide your government needs to go, it will go. Now I want to ask yourself a question. If you were the leadership of Iran watching all of this, what would you conclude? If you were in North Korea watching all of this, what would you conclude? If you're in any government that the United States had labeled a threat watching all of this, what would you conclude? The conclusion is not difficult to reach. The only thing that deters regime change is the capability to make regime change costly. Gaddafi had the capability. He surrendered it. And 8 years later, he was dead in a drainage pipe. The people who negotiated the Iran nuclear deal in 2015, the GCPOA, were asking Iran to do exactly what Gaddafi did. Surrender the program, open to inspectors, trust the process in exchange for sanctions, relief, and normalized relations. Iran complied with IAEA certified compliance repeatedly. 2 years later, the United States walked away from the agreement, not because Iran violated it, because a new administration decided it was inconvenient. And what's interesting about that GCPOA, if I'm correct, if that's a treaty, was it ever been ratified by the Senate in the United States? That's a good question to ask and look up, because I didn't see anything like that, to be very frank. But I'll continue. Now we're at war. Now, let me tell you what Libya looks like today. The free healthcare is gone. Free education is gone. The housing guarantee is gone. The great man-made river was bombed. The African currency project died with its architect. The country that had the highest per capita income in Africa now has two compelling governments, neither of which controls the full territory. More than 1,000 armed militias operating across the country, an open slave market that emerged after 2011 in which African migrants are bought and sold. The promise was freedom. The reality is that Libya has been a failed state for 14 years, a playground for foreign powers, a trafficking corridor, and a warning that no serious analyst can ignore. I'm not here to defend the Iranian government. I'm not here to defend Gaddafi. Both were and are authoritarian regimes that have caused genuine suffering. I'm here to ask Americans to look honestly at the cause and effect of what their government has done. We told Gaddafi, disarm and you will be safe. He disarmed, he was not safe. We told Iran, comply with the nuclear agreement and we will honor our commitments. They complied. We didn't honor our commitments. We destroyed a country that had the highest living standard in Africa and replaced it with chaos, slavery, and permanent conflict. We are now asking the world to trust American assurance, to believe that cooperation will be rewarded, to believe that the rules apply to everyone equally. But the president, reset, says otherwise. The president, reset, says the rule apply for the weak, that compliance is for countries that cannot defend themselves, that American commitments last only until the next administration decides they are inconvenient, and that prosperity built outside the approved financial architecture will be targeted regardless of what justification is offered publicly. This is not the America the founders designed. The founders designed a republic with a government constrained by law, a government whose commitments meant something because they were backed by institutions and not just by the goodwill of whoever happened to be in power. What we did to Gaddafi and what we did to the Iran agreement is not a foreign policy failure. It's a credibility failure. And credibility, once lost, is not recovered by rhetoric. It is only recovered by behavior over time. Every government in the world that watched what happened to Gaddafi drew the same lesson. Get the bomb or be Gaddafi. That is the lesson American foreign policy taught. Excuse me here. And I'll continue on. Not because anyone intended to teach it, because that is what the actions communicate regardless of what the words said. And now we are in a war with Iran, and a war that did not begin last month, a war whose seeds were planted the day we watched Gaddafi trust us, disarm, and die in a drainage pipe. Americans deserve to understand that sequence, not so we can relitigate the past, so we can make better decisions about the future, because the next country watching what we do is already drawing its conclusions, and the lesson they are learning is the same one Gaddafi learned, not when he disarmed, when he died. Interesting article indeed. And I have to agree, I'm not lovey-dovey with these governments too, including Gaddafi's regime. However, I remember watching the news about the whole Pan-African agenda, which Muammar Gaddafi wanted to do, backed by gold currency and not depend on Western outside banking systems. I can't blame him for that. He wants to see the rest of the continent be self-reliant, prosperous, and work together. It's his own vision of an African Union, which the people could really benefit. I'm not saying was going to be perfect, but he's trying to decentralize. This is why I never really bought what happened in Scotland, which was horrific, about the airplane that bombed and blew up and all that. I was not endorsing that at all. I condemn it, of course, like everything else when it comes to innocent people being murdered, whether it's terrorist tactics or other means. And, However, I always believed that was the main reason too when they attacked it, because if you study patterns, a lot of history has been happening, even in the United States, when people want to challenge the banking system. They try to get shot, assassinated, and all that. Look what happened to JFK. Look what happened to Abraham Lincoln. All right. And even Ronald Reagan, by the way, we went to Arthur Goad. And allegedly Donald Trump. Like him or not, I'm not saying picking sides, but he wanted to do, wanted to like get more like a decentralizing as well. That's to give you folks, a clue. And my person like myself always question these things. The United States has to be a republic, not a global empire. And we all know all these wars, a lot of the wars, even since from at least 1742, was Rothschild approved. A lot of these big wars are banksters approved. And that's what happened in Libya. And what we're seeing right now is going on in Syria. Now Iran. It's all part of that seventh kingdom for the Club of Rome. 10 regions of the world. European Union is one of them. North American Union, Japan, and all that. I can keep going. They're the ones who want to benefit from this. They don't really give a damn what the people think. And this is why, in these United States, as Americans, and when the Declaration of Independence was signed by the 57 men, what does it say? Main objective: never trust the government, including them. Because there's an evil institution. We go even look at, I recommend people study stuff on death by government. Look it up. Death by Government by R.G. Roman. You see a website. There's books on that stuff. That government's gone rogue, has murdered innocent people. We need to go back to foreign policy in these United States. Commerce to all, a tangling alliance with none. That's how it should be. And I don't give a damn what people think. And like I said before, I'm not crazy about government, including Gaddafi and even the mullahs. I find it unacceptable. All this intervention is dangerous, and it could blow back in our faces when least expect it. I recommend folks to read the book Blowback by Chalmers Johnson. Good stuff. And I've been learning about these things a good period of time. Glad I did. Well, that's my intake on this. Thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you want to donate, go to PayPal to me or Cash Out at /local3. If you want to support antiwar.com, pretty cool. Donate, buy their stuff, and observe responsibly. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.